Welcome to episode 43 with Steve Moby Leach, a celebrated coach and speaker, deeply committed to enlightening, uplifting, and empowering audiences. Also, an adventure swimmer with a documentary as well on one of those epic swims that he has done. So, thank you, Steve, for joining us today.
Jonathan, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to just jump into a conversation.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited to hear your story. Taking us way back, where did you grow up, and what were the defining chapters that led you to where you are?
Yeah, I was incredibly blessed to grow up in Scotland, over in Balerno, Scotland, a small town just outside of Edinburgh. Defining chapters, my gosh. Quite a few defining factors. So I started coming to the United States. My first summer when I was 6 months old. And
Oh,
I've
wow.
spent every summer, other than I think two, maybe three summers my entire life in America. I didn't spend any in Scotland up until the age of uh, 20. So I was always over in America. So that was pretty defining because it led to a lot of actually insecurities for me. When
Really?
I was in America, I was the Scottish guy. When I was in Scotland, they all called me the Yank because I was always over in America. And
Interesting.
I never really felt like I fit in. And that was pretty defining for me in my like insecurities. So I grew up swimming and also grew up with my dad being an evangelist and grew up inside the church. But at church, I was always swimming. At swimming, I was going to church. And the two never seemed to coexist. I never felt as good as the people in church. Everyone seems to have it all together. And as swimming, to be honest, everyone looked like they're having way more fun than the people in church. So I couldn't really reconcile the two things in my brain.
Interesting.
It just led to a lot of insecurities where at a very, young age, started getting into, like smoking pot and drinking. And,
Yes.
and then, went off to swim at Clemson University in South Carolina at 17 years old. It just was not ready, could not handle it, and found myself in the fringe. So that was
I
pretty
see.
defining. That just, if I had to boil down my childhood, that would be boiled down into a 30-second conversation.
Yeah, no, that's a lot for such a young age. Going back and forth, and not feeling like you belong in either country.
Yeah.
And to add in, not that it has any relevance, but you don't have a Scottish accent at all.
So I worked in kitchens in America for a long, long time. I was in hospitality for 19 years. And at the beginning of it, I very quickly realized that nobody could understand me. When I get excited, I talk fast. And if I talk fast, my bro comes out more, and and I
Cool
couldn't,
accent.
I actually had to consciously get rid of it so that people could understand me in the kitchen.
Interesting. So you were in hospitality for a while then.
I was 19 years.
Uh,
And that was pretty defining. Got to cook for what the world would say is a bunch of celebrities, and got traveled over with cooking, and then ended up opening up a restaurant, which is this is a pretty one of the big pillars in my life was to open up a restaurant in 2008 when the economy crashed,
no,
and in
sadly.
2010 I crashed, and that was really my 20 years of living on the fringe, living for myself, not taking care of myself, trying to do whatever I could. So one of the defining conversations I'll never forget was Kevin Costner's best friend, Tim. Tim said to me one time, he's like, Steve, you guys, you love helping people, but you really love helping people that help you. And I was like, that seems kind of icky, weird, like not cool. But it was true. And it was something that defined me. Like I was always out for myself. And in 2010, I hit rock bottom. If there is a rock bottom, I hit as far as I could go. Um, it was, I was spiritually, physically, relationally, financially bankrupt, completely
Wow.
gone. Had an affair. My addictions had overtaken me, and woke up under a tree in a rest area on the side of the highway, and just say, "Okay, Lord, I'm done running. I cannot do this the way I've been doing it. I'm going to start trusting you." When I say bankrupt, like I had burned it, burned everything to the ground. So that started a process of turning back. And what I realized now that I'm doing more podcasts and I'm speaking more, is at that moment, or the very darkest moment, I made the tiniest little choice, which was the biggest and best choice of my life. And it was like, instead of staying stuck and going, okay, I'm going to make one more bad decision, I was just like, I gave my life up. And there was the Lord. There was Jesus just waiting for me, going, I'm here. I've
That's
always been here.
amazing. That is
So,
amazing. So the moment you surrendered and just trusted the Lord, that was the first choice, the first step in the right direction.
right. And then I started a process of about 2 years of trying to perform. Um, and make myself out to be like, look what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm serving. I'm doing, like I'm serving in youth group. I'm doing, it was really kind of gross. And then I really started to realize that although I was working on the spiritual aspects of my life, I had to work on the physical. And I started getting healthy again and working out. And then I started working on the relational. And that's when I found out I was performing because I was like, it's okay not to be okay. And one of my great mentors said to me, Steve, do you share with the Lord all the bad things that are the struggles that are going on in your life? And I was like, absolutely not. He doesn't want to hear me whine. And Mike Bowden said, well, what kind of a relationship is that if it's just you bring all the good stuff?
That's so true.
And he's like, do you think any of it takes God by surprise? He just wants to know it so he can work through it with you. And that was defining. You know,
That is powerful.
I really enjoyed that mentorship and starting to rebuild. And that's where I coined the phrase. And it was in my last couple of years of hospitality. I was running a food and beverage team for a great boss in Michigan. And the servers, I was like, hey, when you focus on others, you're not focused on yourself. And if you're constantly focused on yourself and you're thinking about the tips, you're thinking about how much money you're going to make, you're thinking about when you're going to get out of here. But in service, when you think about you constantly, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you?
Yes,
Number one, you'll feel more rewarded. Two, time will probably go faster. And three, you
100%.
watch, your tips are going to go up. And
100%.
so that it was interesting just seeing going through those processes. And what I would say is now what defines me today.
That's powerful. No, I love that. And I can relate. I was in hospitality as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and worked my way up to fine dining, hotel, resorts. And so it's true when you shift your mindset instead of focusing on, and it's so symbolic. It's so
Right.
symbolic. And
Right. It's
yeah.
sacrificial.
Oh yeah. I love that you recognized, with sharing your story, you recognized that you were trying to put on a show for a while because so many of us just want to show the world what, that outward projection, all of that, the ego, the image. And
Right. Right.
so, what was once you started giving yourself, surrendering to the Lord and He was guiding you, what was the next step after you started focusing on your relationships and your health? Then everything started to come together, and then it led you to the realization you wanted to speak and share your story?
No, not quite. So Kelly and I, so after I worked on my spiritual, physical, relational, I was working on that financial piece, which was just who would I be in the workplace? And that's when I was able to go out on top in the restaurant business. In hospitality, I went out on top, leading teams up in Michigan with an incredible boss who treated it like a business, not like a hospitality where, like if you work 6 days in the week as a manager, you got that 6 day back as a vacation day, which was
Nice.
incredible for me because my kids, that point, we're still in South Carolina. So I was traveling back and forth to see them. So I would work, bank vacation, take long weekends or take whatever to drive to go see them.
That's awesome.
And it just really was a great thing for me. That got me into being an agent for medical oncologists. My Kelly and I, and my bride now, we got married 11 years ago. That's where I really started the personal development, learning about, hey, this is the structure that I actually used, and then started coaching people on that structure. The daily habits, the weekly habits, the quarterly habits, things that go into your life to actually make up a full life. But you still find yourself in traps, right? I found myself chasing money. And, excuse me. And then I remember praying, I was like, Lord, I feel like I'm the one in control of this. And I want to start trusting you for it all instead of trusting me. And so fast forward, we go through COVID and all that. And I'd been remote before we went COVID. I went remote so we could get back closer to my children in South Carolina. And long story short is we blended a family, and it was really hard. We felt like we were on a desert island all by ourselves, like nobody really understood what we were going through. But then there were some other families in our church at the time who were going through it. We were able to have conversations. And I realized that the more we talk about the hard stuff we're going through, the more we'll actually meet people and be able to share the testimony of what Lord's doing. But He'll also give us people that we can support them and they can support us.
That makes sense.
And it's completely excuse me, counter cultural. Image, image, image.
That's
You know,
true.
you got to have the matching outfits for the photographs. You got to have the right things on your LinkedIn profile. You got to have the right resume. If you don't have all the right things, reading First Corinthians 4 this last week and just seeing what Paul says about being a Christian, it's like we are the scum of the earth. We're getting treated. That's how he's getting treated. I'm like, that doesn't sound like Christianity nowadays. You know.
That is
So
true.
it's really interesting when you start to dive into all this. But it's been a process of getting me to where I am now. And here's the thing, I love sharing this. I couldn't write the story that I'm living. I just couldn't. I could write the horror part of it, but the good parts, the miracles that God does every day, couldn't write it. Couldn't write it.
Why is that?
Well, number one, never in my life did I expect to write a book. Number two, never in my life did I expect to have a documentary. Number three, never in my life did I expect to have a marriage where the love grows, the commitment grows. Everything was always diminishing in my previous relationships because it was, what can you get? What can you get? Not what can you give?
Wow, that's powerful.
Never in my life did I expect to have, um, a relationship where we have kids that really enjoy being with us, but it's hard. My son hasn't barely spoken to me in 2 years, and he's 17. I couldn't write that. That wouldn't have been on my list of things. So the good things I
That's
couldn't
it.
write, but some of the bad things I wouldn't have expected either, because we all expect certain things, right?
Oh yeah,
But most of all, I never would have expected that I would get so bold to share that none of it is thanks to me. The miracles is all thanks to Jesus. I
I
would never
believe
have
it.
a documentary or book or be able to swim channels if it wasn't for him. I would never have. I don't like calling them stepkids because they're just kids, but I don't have kids that actually love and care for me as a dad who stepped in. Um, and kids right now who know me as Moby. That's my grandpa name, and have no idea that I'm not even related to them. Blood, blood wise, just so incredibly blessed.
That's amazing where your life can take you when you just surrender, and that's amazing. That's a
But
beautiful story.
there's so much good and there's so much hard, but he's in the midst of it all.
Absolutely. So you shifted aside from the main thing, which is, surrendering to God, the other factor was shifting from what can I get to what can I give. And
Yep.
every aspect of your life began to transform.
Yeah. I kind of fell back into swimming after 26 years of not swimming. I had a great friend, manager at the time, who said, he was a triathlete. He said, "Hey, why don't you try an open water swim?" And I'm like, "What?" Or he said, "No, why don't you start swimming again?" I was like, "Yeah, right. It's been 26 years. Don't miss it." And he goes, "Well, try open water swimming." So I trained for a couple of weeks in the pool, and I was like, "Hey, I actually enjoy this. I fucking maybe miss swimming." And he said, "Well, why don't you sign up for this race?" And so I signed up for a 2.4 mile race. One, because I knew I wouldn't be fast anymore. Two, I knew mentally I was strong. So if I had any chance of, again, placing, I haven't swum in 26 years, and I'm like, well, how do I maybe, be not one of the worst, maybe kind of be up one top
Yeah,
three or top five,
strategy.
So yeah, I'm thinking I'm like, instead of just going out and having fun, which is so funny. And I trained for 6 weeks to 24, won my age group, and came
Congratulations.
like 11th overall. And I'm just like, huh,
Man,
I'm not bad at this. And I did another one, and then I was like, no, I don't want to race people. I just want to see how far I can swim. So I swam I did a 5 mile swim, then I did a 12-mile swim. Then during COVID, I did like a 26-mile swim. And it was all like just me swimming and really enjoying it. And when we did the 26 miles, I looked up and the English Channel, and I was like, wait a minute, that's only 20 miles. I just did 26.
No.
Kelly and I were like, okay, we're going to sign up for the English Channel. So I signed up for the English Channel, but there's a 2.5 year waiting list.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Mount Everest of channel swims. I was like, oh, I'll just wait. That's fine. So then the next year, I did a 21 mile swim in Lake Kiwi, top to bottom in South Carolina, to raise money for cancer awareness. And I remember thinking, I'm swimming for people who don't choose to be in this position. And again, that hit and that stuck with me. And I was like, okay,
Oh yeah.
that makes
Motivation.
me that makes me go, you know. But also in that time frame, my non-biological sister Laura passed. My dad passed just after it on Father's Day, and it was a good. I'm glad he passed then and not 10 years before when I was struggling. You know, I remember thinking that summer, man, I'm in a really bad spot. Like my head's not right. I'm discombobulated. I can't control my emotions, my feelings. I was just really, really struggling. It almost felt like I was back in addiction, even though I wasn't using or anything.
I
My
see.
mind was like broken. And Kelly and I had gone on a sales trip to Hawaii. And I had always said we wanted to go back to Maui. We love it. One of my favorite places on earth. So I was sitting on the beach in Michigan. And I said, hey, I'll be back. And I went up to the cottage, made a phone call to a captain, went back down to the beach and said, hey, we're going to Hawaii April next year. I'm going to swim the Kauai Channel. And she's like, what? I said, I felt like the Lord was just saying, move. And so we moved. And that is how I kind of went down this spiral of getting in, because at that point I just found out about the Ocean 7 challenge. And that was the longest of the Ocean 7 was that Kauai Channel in Hawaii. So then I've got that booked, I've got the English Channel booked, and I come up with this idea, let's do all seven. But let's do them in
So the Ocean Seven, sorry to interrupt. That's going to be a series of 7 races across the world.
seven swims, yeah, seven channel swims. It's the English Channel, Kauai Channel, Cook Strait in New Zealand, North Channel from Northern Ireland to Scotland, Catalina Channel, Catalina Island to Los Angeles, Gibraltar, Spain to Morocco, and Segura Strait in Japan from northern Japan to Hokkaido. And
That
these
is,
are brutal
oh,
swims.
I
North
can
Channel
imagine.
was so. All this to say that was what started the. If we're going to swim for others and raise money for others, and we started just going on mission, right? And to date, I've done 5 of the 7 swims. I did 3 of them last year. The first 2 swims, we raised money for Foster Families Counseling Fund with Miracle Hill here in the upstate. My wife works with the foster team, and people matched what we raised. And a counselor actually started after 1 year of us raising money, so that was really great. Now they've got people giving, and they've got a full-time counselor working.
That's amazing.
That's when, after that, then I started our ministry called Rising Tides. Actually, when I was swimming in one of the channels, I kept watching the boat go up and down. And I always thought, you know, if we're all pulling each other up and we're all pointing everyone to Jesus, then the boat's going to rise, you know.
In
So
time, I
Rising
like it.
Tides mentorship ministry, where we took a house and we have men after biblical addiction recovery who that is their home. They can stay there as long as they want. I mentor them every week. We walk through life together and we're working on our second home.
Beautiful. That
So
is,
yeah, so
wow.
that's where we are now, and it's a kind of crazy story because everyone's like, yeah, he's the sober swimming guy, but he's the sober swimming guy who loves Jesus and wants everybody to know that Jesus will change your life, and I don't want them to miss it, you know.
That is very inspiring. And that is so amazing how you got your first house, you're going to get your second house, that's continuing to grow and impact others and turn lives around. That is amazing. I'm curious with the swimming, that is
Yeah,
quite a feat. So you swam in Hawaii. the Strait, and it was 27 miles, if I remember correctly.
It was 28 miles. I think the boat captain said I swam 30, which I don't know how because we went pretty straight across. But you can see the whole movie's about that. The documentary's about that on Amazon. Amazon is called Beyond the Shoreline, the
Beyond the
Channel of
Shoreline.
Bones, because it's called the Channel of Bones. And yeah, it that was I kind of splashed onto the open water swimming scene because nobody had heard of me. I'd never done any channels, and it was one of the craziest nights of my life. And if you think about my past
Oh
with
yeah.
drugs, now when I was saying
Oh
this was
yeah.
one of the craziest nights of my life, we started at 6:30 at night. It got dark at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I swam through the middle of the night in
Pitch blackness.
4 to 6 foot swells. Got stung by Portuguese man o' wars, electrocuted by a shark shield. I was sick for about 2.5 hours, just vomiting because the waves are so big. Um, Almost got hit by a fishing boat in the middle of the night. And somehow,
Oh,
in
boy.
all that, managed to complete the swim by the grace of God. Total miracle, but also put up the sixth fastest time ever in history,
Whoa.
which, as open water swimmers, for any of you who are watching this, I'm not bragging about that. It was the current determines what time you get, really,
I see.
um, and the conditions. But it was still all of a sudden people were messaging me like, "Man, amazing swim," and I'm like talking to some of the best swimmers in the world, and I'm like, "Wow, God's given me a platform."
Oh yeah. A huge tool to
Like,
leverage.
yeah, giving me a platform, and so that was really cool. But since then, we swam the English Channel, and then the same summer, 30 days later, I swam the North Channel, but failed it.
Okay.
Got pulled out after 10 hours, and then last year, in June, I did the Segura Strait from northern Japan to Hokkaido. Amazing swim there. Then went and did North Channel again, completed it. Then in December went to Cook Strait from the North Island to South Island and got
Nice.
ever living tar kicked out of me for close to 12 hours. It was brutal.
I got so
Actually,
many questions.
maybe it's close to 13 hours. Can't remember. They're all running together. So yeah, we've got 5 of 7 swims done, and we've got to share the gospel in every country we've gone to.
Nice.
Speak in some churches. We get to share a movie with addiction recovery programs. We've shared our movie in churches. We've shared it in movie theaters. And the beauty of it is, none of this would be possible in my mind if it wasn't for what Jesus did in my life.
Absolutely. That is such a beautiful story how you hit rock bottom and then, you know, did a complete turn and your life just flourished so much and so
It, it,
beautiful.
it has flourished, but there's also a lot of hard in it. Like I never want to do
Yes.
like that prosperity kind of thing where it's like,
Yeah.
no, like there's still a lot we have to work through, just even in family dynamics and things like that. And also, I post a lot online. You Google or you chat GTP, Steve Moby Leach, you'll find a lot of stuff about me. And not all the messages you get are all great.
I
But
see.
the beauty of it is God's still sovereign. We trust him.
Yes.
And then you get, and just different opportunities open up that you'd never expect. But the bottom line is just being ready and available to serve him.
I see. No, that's great advice. And I love that you just accept, the good and the bad, and you're so humble. And you're a great example of how, we all should be with acknowledging our past, our weak spots, and, the growth.
That's
But
right.
I definitely, I did want to ask you with the swim because what you did, what you've done is so it's such a huge accomplishment, and people might not realize how difficult a swim is, especially a 30-mile swim in the middle of the night. And like, the mental side, like people might not think into how that's probably the most challenging thing anyone could ever do, mentally and physically. And so I've got so many questions like, well, first of all, like, isn't it dangerous with sharks and stuff like that? Like the man o' war, that could have killed you. Like, there's so many things that could have killed you, and you can't see anything, right? Like mentally, what was your why? Why did you keep pushing? And I have so many questions, but what
Yeah.
about?
So the answer to the danger is yes.
Wow.
I've got friends who are bringing out a movie. It's coming out this year. And it's called Don't Be Prey. It's literally called
No
Don't Be
way.
Prey. It's about Mark Sotherby. And Mark actually swam. The interesting thing about Mark, we've never met. And he probably has no idea who I am, but I know some of the people he's got in his thing. When I was walking down to start my Hawaii swim, this man turns to me and goes, "Hey, are you swimming the channel tonight?" I said, "Yes, I am. Thanks for asking." And he goes, "Well, good luck to you. Just so you know, do you know Mark Sotherby?" I was like, "Never heard of him." He's like, "Well, he's a channel swimmer." I was like, "I don't know any channel swimmers." I knew one, Darren Miller, who was the youngest guy to complete all Ocean 7, because I was brazen enough to pick up a phone and get his number and call him to ask him for advice like the week before the swim, because I was like, well, I guess I should probably talk to somebody that's done it, you know? And, uh, and he goes, "Well, I watched Mark start 1 year ago today." And so he swam. So he's got a movie coming out. Don't Be Prey. Yes, you are a visitor in a place where you shouldn't be. Okay.
Because there's
I
the
mean,
oceanic white tips. I mean, you could easily get like eaten by sharks.
there's tigers, there's great whites. I mean, everything's actually the worst sharks out there for swimmers are cookie cutters. They just go around taking bites out of everything. Actually, a couple people got taken out this year with like golf tennis ball bites out of there. Or Joanne got a bite out of her stomach. Another guy out of his ankle. So yes, incredibly dangerous. Not to mention the seasickness. Not to mention the salt water exposure to your tongue, your throat. Your tongue will start peeling the next day and chunks will come off. And it is dangerous. The also most dangerous part is the boat. You're near engines and very unpredictable wind and currents and everything. I actually had a kayaker with me on that one. But to answer your question, yes, it's like any extreme sport. It's just incredibly dangerous. So what keeps you grounded? Let me tell you about a prayer or a situation in the first swim. Like I said, I was 4.5 hours in. I wasn't thinking about quitting. I wasn't sure how I was going to keep going. I'd been sick for two hours of that 4.5. And when I say sick, like projectile vomiting.
Oh, that's horrible.
I'd been at that point stung 5 times by Portuguese man of wars. I got electrocuted by the shark shield in a little accident. It's a tail on the back, electric probe, like rope thing on the back of the kayak, and it got compressed, and I swam into it, and it hit me in the chest, and then it hit me in the side, and it's pitch dark. It's pitch dark, and I'm like, oh, and I
You
actually
can't say
said
anything.
that word and started swimming. And I said to the kayaker, I was like, man, I just don't know how I'm going to do this. And he goes, Steve, it's called a challenge for a reason. That's why less than 100 people have ever completed this swim, and it's got a 70% fail rate. And I was like, oh. So I was like, okay, Lord. And I had a little prayer. And I was like, Lord, I prayed in Jesus' name for you to calm the seas, calm the oceans. And you didn't. And he just said to me plain as day, he goes, Steve, I never promised to calm the oceans. I promised to calm you in the oceans.
Wow. So
And
symbolic.
I was like, okay, I can do it. And I popped up and I was like, we're going to finish this. I was like, give me a peanut butter and jelly. And they've actually got on film me asking for the peanut butter and jelly, which is great because it's pitch dark. But then the reminders came that God is incredible. There's no light pollution. We're in the middle of the Kauai Channel. And the stars, man, like is a dome of stars, more stars than I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't even focus. There's so many stars. And I'm thinking, your descendants will be as numerous as the stars that I've placed in the sky. Talking about Abraham, you know? I'm like, oh my gosh, God is with me. And I just knew in that moment, no matter how dark it is, and this is the lesson for everyone listening, no matter how dark it gets in your life, God is always there. All you have to do is talk to him, reach out to him, or acknowledge him. And because you absolutely cannot get rid of the light. There's not enough darkness to get rid of the light.
That's powerful.
So that was the amazing part is in all of these swims, I found myself praying for people. Because you got 10, 11, 12, 13 hours. Sometimes things are going well and sometimes they aren't. So when they aren't going well, you might as well start thinking about someone else and praying for them to try and get your mind off it. And that's what we've kind of built. our team around and us around is we want to pray for you, with you, and, ultimately always point the way to Jesus. Always point the way to Jesus.
I see. So the focusing on God being with you and the beauty of what surrounds you, and then your purpose kept you going because mentally, that in pitch blackness, and then in addition to swimming for 12 hours, the physical side in pitch blackness, and then the unknown, and then the getting stung and, like attacked by things, it doesn't get any worse. Like, so for you to get through that, that the mental fortitude, that's amazing.
And again, it's all glory to God. Like He gives me the strength to get up every morning to train.
Wow.
Because it's like I train every morning, I train at night. You know, you got to train every day. I'm getting older. I'm 50, just turned 52 last week. Still do it, and it's like, okay, now I got to stretch more. I got to do more mobility work. But again, God just keeps saying, "Trust me, trust me, trust me." And
That
I would say this to your listeners, like, no matter how hard it is, close your eyes, whatever the hardest thing is you're going through in life, just remember He was always there in that, just as He's there with you right here today, because He's for you, He's not against you. He
you're right.
created you out of His image. He wants you to be in relationship with Him. So don't let the oceans of the darkness or the waves of life distract you from having that relationship that will change your life.
Right. No, that makes sense. I know personally, I always try, my bad habit is I always try to handle everything on my own.
Oh, yeah.
And no matter how bad it gets, like I had my wife and I had a little food business, and it was so seasonal here in our city that up north, I went up north to Illinois for their Highland Park area for their summer season as a Hail Mary. Packed up my little Prius, little food cart, headed up north, got in 7 farmers markets. Plan was to rent a room, make money, come back for peak season here in October. And ultimately, I wasn't making enough money. Markets were slow. So I lived out of my car for 4 months while running the business. But my point is, and no matter how bad things get, I always tend to just try to carry the weight and just, instead of just surrendering and letting God guide me. So I need to remember just to let go and just trust God, trust the process. Man,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It doesn't mean that you just sit on your couch and do nothing, right?
that's true.
It's
Yeah,
like
you're right.
hey Lord, what do you want me to do? Where do you
The
want me to go?
guidance.
Who do you want me to talk to? Or I've noticed, and you might, whenever I try and do a day, and I do a lot of them, where I try to solve every problem by my power, or I'm just focused,
Yes.
working, 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 working. And I get to the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted because I've forgotten to just stay in relationship with my source.
Wow. Stay in relationship with my source. That's powerful in itself right there.
You know?
Huh.
And so when we walk with them, we talk with them, we pray with them, we share with them, like constantly throughout the day, there's more peace in the pain, because
Peace
this
in the
world is in pain.
You're right. No, you're right. That's true. So ultimately connecting, staying connected to source
Hmm.
is the best way to be at peace and navigate your life and your path and why you're here,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. I mean, God's got a purpose for your life, don't miss it.
I agree. I love how everyone is created so fundamentally different and it's for their path. It's everyone has their own gifts, their own talents, their own wiring, and we really can't compare paths with one another because everyone has their own path.
That's right.
I love that. What advice would you give your younger self? One piece of advice going back maybe 10, 15 years, what would you say?
I've been asked this one a lot in podcasts, and I, this today when you asked me that question, and I just sit and look at it and I like the Lord just said, don't try and fit in.
I like that. I like that.
Even the gurus in the coaching world and personal development, they're all full of it. They're like, you got to be the 1%, the 1%, the 1%. I'm like, what? But God only created one of you. So why would you be 1% of one?
Wow.
You know,
God only created one of you.
so like act accordingly. It's your life and your relationship with Him. And you know what? It's like you said, He's going to use your skills and talents to serve others. He's going to give you opportunity, but then He's also going to ask you to do stuff that isn't using your skills and talents. Moses wasn't a good speaker, right? But he had him lead the Israelites out of Israel. Like Paul was slaying Christians, crying out loud.
I remember in the Bible.
But and so that's like the thing is like, what does he want me to do? And we're constantly, the more we can lean into that, the better, because it's that eternal perspective, right? And
Absolutely.
we're not gonna get it right. We're not a bunch of perfects. We're not perfects. It's okay.
That's true.
We're gonna screw up.
That's true. As long as we're trying to connect to source, trying to gain guidance,
Yep.
clarity,
Seek,
purpose.
seek, seek.
Seek. The many powerful lessons that you shared already. What do you have any advice for someone struggling with self-doubt or lack of motivation? Would you say just to, pray and try to gain guidance and clarity that way, or what would you say?
So motivation is a feelings-based emotion, right? And your feelings will lie to you, although they are important. Your feelings also shouldn't let you dictate what the facts are. So discipline is a good word. Because everyone thinks discipline is bad. Like if God disciplines us, then it's good because it means He cares and He's loving, He's the Father. But also, discipline means the act of doing habits and doing things. So, like if you're disciplining yourself to spiritually develop yourself every day, physically develop yourself every day, relationally develop yourself every day. And what I mean by that is we have a system where these development things and then also financial learning about things. And then when you go out into the business world as a man, you're armored up, you're ready to go. People go, well, what do you mean? I said, okay, well, let's look at just relational. You're married, right? Okay.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, you're married. If you're married,
yeah.
or if you're dating, you get in an argument with your partner, with your spouse, right? And then you have a meeting right afterwards, or you have to go to work. Do you feel ready for that meeting?
No, that would mess with you for
To
sure.
mess with your head. Oh, but if you ground yourself spiritually, physically, relationally every morning, that means you start creating momentum. We've got 12 points worth of morning habits that we do every day. I've been doing these for years just to grow, to um, develop in each area. And that starts to erode the self doubt because you stop believing in yourself and you start believing in someone else. And I think you're always going to have a bit of imposter syndrome every time you're doing something new because you've never done it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like everyone nowadays, everyone's like, I want to be a pro in 30 days. What?
Yeah, there's no
It took me
patience with.
took me a year and a half to cold water adapt, almost 2 years,
Yeah,
to get ready.
how did you because you
Yeah,
the wetsuit only does so much.
don't wear a wetsuit.
Oh, no way. 14 hours, 12
Yeah, no
hours.
wetsuit. Yeah, 54-degree water.
Whoa, that's even more impressive.
Yeah. So it started off by like not having a space heater next to my desk in my home office. And then after that, I took my jacket off in winter in the house. And then after that, I started taking like 5 seconds cold showers, 10 seconds cold showers. And then I worked up to, actually, I did my first cold plunge the day after doing the Hawaii swim with our friends in Maui. I sat in their plunge and they're like, you got to do 6 minutes. And I jumped in. I was like, I wanted to jump out. I was like, no, stay in. I was like, oh, okay. I just was laying there. I was like, oh, this feels kind of good actually.
No,
But then it started building up and getting in colder things. And then once you've been in an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours, you're like, oh, okay, this is a whole different ballgame.
that would kill the average person. Hypothermia in 15, 20, right?
So 19, yeah, it's like 19, 20 minutes to get hypothermia. But if you keep moving, you can keep your blood flow and everything up, and you're taking hot feeds. But I adapted to the point now where I get too hot. Um, um,
That's
you know,
insane.
I've switched my body over. So if you think of that, if you are adapted to living a life of self and everything's not working, don't you think you can make some decisions and change some habits that'll adapt you into a new way of life?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. There's like so many lessons within, everything you're sharing and with the swimming feats alone. There's just so many, it's so symbolic of life.
Right.
Like going in the dark, trusting God, trusting the process, the journey, and the training, doing the best that you can with trusting God and putting the time and the energy, the work. Man, and I didn't know. That is literally the most challenging thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like, and I love pushing myself physically, but a swim like that with all those factors,
Well, hold up, hold up. So buckle up. So you just completely diminished something incredible that you've done in your life. You went out and started a small business. You started a business. And although I might not have made it, right?
yes,
You jumped out the boat. The hardest part is jumping out the boat and trying it and
same.
saying, I'm going to do this. And people, it might have just been you and your wife believing it. It might have been just you believing at one point where she's like, I don't know if this is going to work, but you're like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. And that's the thing. Like the more we get out the boat, the more we try, the more we're going to fail. But at least we're living a life where we're like, okay, Lord, I'm willing to fail 1,000 times in public if I means that 1,000 times I get to share your message. I'm willing to succeed 1,000 times because that'd be way more fun, Lord, if I could succeed.
True,
But
true.
you know what I'm
Thank
saying?
you. Oh yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
and I think that's so often in life we just forget all the lessons that we can get because it's never failure. It's never failure. It's always like, what can I learn from that could connect me to someone else to be a conduit.
Definitely. Everything is a lesson.
Yep.
I like that. What would you say is how has the physical, the swimming, how has that influenced other areas of your life with the training?
The swimming made me get a lot better at time management. I didn't want to miss out on time with my family, being home for dinner at night, things like that. Also realized that if I wanted time to train, I had to get up before the rest of the house. So that means I get up at 4:30 every morning and have done for a decade now. I think the biggest thing that it taught me is like it's the power. So I'm always faith based. And so I was like, okay, how's God going to use this? But it's also the power of seeing it through. Like,
I see.
do you want me to do this? I've had to say I'm willing to give it up. But the biggest lesson is like I would say in the middle of the swims where things are the wheels are starting. There's always a point where the wheels are starting to come off the bus. Is the term that I like to use. Sometimes things have been going well and all of a sudden things are not going well, or sometimes things have been going bad right from the start. English Channel, I was almost puking before I got off the boat. And I had to jump off in pitch dark with a spotlight into waves to swim into a beach, a rock beach, where the wind's whipping so bad, it's cold, the water's cold. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty primal. But what I learned is I think the biggest lesson is understanding that we are creatures and we have been made. There's just so much more in this universe, like with the
Oh yeah.
stars.
Oh, for sure.
And that, if God can create every single hair on our head, if he can be everywhere all the times, then of course he can be with us in every moment, every swim. And there's not one swim that's been harder than dropping off my kids after visitation, which to this day is still the hardest thing I've ever gone through is when I had my kids for visitation after my former and I divorced. I
Yes.
had to drop them off back at their mother's house.
That was more just as challenging as,
That was way worse than any swim I've done. Way
man,
worse.
wow. That puts things in perspective for sure.
And it's not, and the other thing I learned is not everyone needs to go swim oceans.
Yes. Everyone has their own challenges, their
Everyone
own.
has their own challenge. But I say this carefully, stop watching other people's lives and go do what God called you to do.
Love that. I love that. Everyone compares, everyone tries to, well, not everyone, but many people try to follow or copy in a sense, thinking that's their path as well, instead of looking within and trusting. And I love
Right,
that. Yes.
right, for
Uh,
sure.
that's amazing, man. I've just got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
The actually random question. I know I keep going back to this. I'm just so fascinated by it. How did you and sorry about jumping around. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how do you eat when you're swimming? Do you kind of swim on your back and eat, or kind of slow
So
down a little bit?
now, once again, like people need to go watch Beyond the Shoreline, the Channel of Bones on Amazon,
I'm
and you'll
gonna
see
watch
how I
that.
feed. But basically, the boat or whoever's they have a like a ski rope with a carabiner. I actually have used the same two bottles for every channel swim. I'm not superstitious, so don't think that. I just really like those bottles because they have a large mouth on them and I can pop the top and feed. but I just tread water. I'm not allowed to touch the kayak. I'm not allowed to touch the boat. I'm not allowed to touch anybody else. The rope cannot go taut, so the boat can't pull you. And so it's got to be loose. So they've got a 50-foot rope that they sling out, and I just swim into it. And then when I hit it, I reel it in, drink, quick conversation, maybe no conversation, maybe while I'm drinking, they're telling me something. But I try and keep my feet to now between 14 and 20 seconds, and then I'm going
Wow.
again, keep my body temperature up. But yeah,
That's not
just
a,
treading water. And treading water, when you're going up and down like this in big waves,
that's a workout in itself.
just get a little workout yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
At
like
least,
how do
at
you
least,
stay afloat?
at least ultra runners that could sit down, or whatever. We keep going.
Yeah, how do you stay afloat for, t like 14 hours like that? Is it like I don't, is it just the constant motion and the training, the endurance?
Yeah, I mean, swimmers are just really good at floating.
Okay.
Actually, it's actually when people, I've taught a couple guys how to swim for special forces, for going into special forces contracts, and they come to me and are like, "Can you help me with my swimming?" And I watch them walk in. First thing we got to do is teach you how to float. They're like, "Well, I need to learn how to swim." I'm like, "Nah, if you can learn how to float, then you." And that's always the process is do the smallest thing. So I'm really good at floating.
Is there a specific technique or is it more there's like
It's just
body
body,
composition?
body position and oxygen intake.
Okay, so your lungs will as you like inflate them,
Yeah,
helps you with the buoyancy.
and just being able to hold yourself in a position in the water. Salt water also helps because it's more buoyant than lake
Yes.
water. So you're kind of like higher up anyway.
The density. I see. And is it easier in cold water too? Like denser, cold water is denser than warm water? Or not much of a difference?
I haven't noticed much of a difference that way.
Okay.
Not a lot is easier in colder water.
Okay. That makes sense.
The cold can be relentless.
Oof, I cannot imagine.
It's trying to stay out of your head because it starts to just seep in.
I see. Wow. My last two questions are how do you balance between I know you kind of touched on this briefly and I know your family is your priority,
Yeah,
but how do you balance, career, your training, family, and personal life? Just very efficient, getting up at 4:30,
yeah. It's time blocking. A
time
lot of time
blocking.
blocking. So like obviously just really sticking to your time and what you're doing, protecting time. And one of the biggest things I had to learn how to say, which is a people pleaser in my past, but once I learned the power of saying no, that became really hard. It's 2, 3 weeks before any swim. One of the hardest things I had to do last year was we were 3 weeks out on the swim, and my bride had invited the couple of the kids and some of the grandkids over for dinner on Friday night, and had forgot to ask me. And she went, "Hey, they're coming tomorrow night. Can you have dinner?" I was like, "I can't
Okay, being strict with your
say no,"
schedule.
like because I had to stick. My
Yes.
schedule was always set for the next day. There was nothing I could move around. I had to get that training in. Because and that was hard. But it's making sure you're there the majority of the time.
Nice.
It's kind of like if you keep putting money into the bank when you have to take a deposit, there's enough money there to take out.
It's a
But
good
if you're
analogy.
constantly just taking out and not putting in, then
That's true.
so that's the kind of premise of, and also living a life that you don't want to escape. If you hate your job, go find a new job. If you're not happy in your church for whatever reason, well, actually look and see if it's you, not the church first.
That's a good
But
point.
all these things, if you're not happy with things, then take a look at them. What
Make a
can we
change.
do different? What can is this working or is this not working? Lord, what do you want of me? Talk to your spouse. Like, what kind of life do you want to live on mission for others? And look at all the things that you can do.
I like that. No, you simplified it. If you're not happy, you make a change,
Yeah,
basically. I
yeah,
like
right.
that.
Yes, I heard someone put it. If you're not happy with where you're living, there's a Greyhound bus that leaves every 15 minutes from your town. I heard
Yeah,
someone say that one time. I was like, gosh, that's so good.
yeah, it's a good point, honestly. Instead of complaining and not making changes. My last question is where can people find you? I'll tag everything below when I post the episode, but social media, the documentary.
Yeah, so Steve Moby Leach, there's only one online. My grandfather's name is Moby, and so I changed all my stuff about 4 years ago, 3 years ago to Steve Moby. I've done everything online to Steve Moby Leach. So super easy to find. You put that in, you'll find me. But on Amazon is my book, Against the Current.
Against the
God
currents, yes.
created you for a purpose, don't miss it. It's a little bit about me, a lot about Jesus, but it gets into more of my past and the lessons that I've learned. Beyond the Shoreline, the Channel of Bones is the movie on Amazon. You can look that up. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok a little bit, not much.
Okay,
But Steve Moby Leach, just look me up. You'll find me.
okay.
If you want to shoot me a message, shoot me a message. You need prayer, please reach out. That is something like shoot me a message on Facebook. That is the best place to send me a message. And if you want prayer, and I will absolutely reach out and pray for you.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. I will make sure I look up all those things and not only watch the documentary and check out your book, but I'll put every link below
I've got a
in the
sheet I can
description.
send you.
Oh, even better. Okay, that
Yeah.
works. Thank you, Steve. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Concludes our episode, but thank you. That was an inspiring story, so much value, and I cannot wait to launch this episode.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you.